Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Dreaming Forward podcast. I'm your host, Kalyn Wilson. And in this month's Dear Lil Sis segment, I want to spend some time talking about how to apply the principles of ESG to your own individual lives. Of course, as you know, the Dear Lil Sis segment is the opportunity for me to share my wisdom as a little bit older Black woman with the younger version of myself and all the wisdom that I wish I knew that would have helped me avoid some pitfalls, especially in my 20s. So, ESG, if you've been watching the other episodes this month, centers on the idea of sustainability. And there are three aspects: environmental, social, and governance. So, environmental is how you engage with the world around you and its resources. Social deals with how you engage with the people around you in ways that are mutually beneficial and are centered on mutual respect. And governance is how you set up structure, boundaries, and rules to be able to thrive and maintain that mutual respect for the environment and for other people. So, of course, businesses work on this all the time, but there are some nuggets that we can pull for ourselves. So, let's get right into it. We're going to start with talking about environmental. A lot of times in your 20s, you are just starting in your career, and very rarely will you start out wealthy enough to create the life that you want. And so it's very easy to downplay the impact that your environment can have on your ability to take appropriate next steps in every aspect of your life. And this could show up in a number of ways. So for me, because I grew up moving a lot from house to house, the idea of home felt very foreign to me, but it was something that I longed for deeply. And I spent a lot of time in my 20s chasing the idea of home in places that I should not have been. And so when you think about the environment, one of the main things that you want to think about in your journey to blossoming into womanhood is, what is the environment for me that feels like home? And that home could be in your actual home, it could be in your friend group, it could be the home in the type of work that you do, etc. This is breaking down, hey, what types of office environments work best for me? Are there certain colors that I need to have in my home space, even if I'm just renting a room, or all the way up to if I bought my first home? All of that matters for how you get a chance to thrive. And that's an aspect of your personal sustainability. Another aspect of environment is having respect for natural resources. So this is everything from what I call grounding exercises. So you probably see my baby in the back of my plant. I keep plants around my home, and there are different plants that work better in different rooms, and I can track my energy based off of what's happening with my plants. I know when I need to make some major changes based off of what my flowers are doing. I get 2 fresh bouquets of flowers every week to put around my home. I go out and touch the earth. You know, people say it a lot as an epithet, almost, go hug a tree. But no, honestly, go hug the tree, go walk barefoot on the grass, go touch things, go touch the earth, maybe cook with raw vegetables and food. How are you engaging with the world around you? Because especially when you do a lot of intellectual and emotional work, when you overwork those particular aspects of your being, you need something to ground you and bring you back to earth. Because other than that, you'll burn out. So, again, the environment is your friend. The environment is your way to keep that balance that is so important for your overall sustainability. I mentioned a little bit about the food part, but diet is really important with that too. If you can, please start incorporating more raw foods and fresh water into your diet. That's going to be super important for just getting your body used to working. I already know the time, sometimes the cost is easy to just get processed stuff. But even if you go as simple as just having an apple or a couple pieces of fruit, a banana in a day, maybe a little tomato and cucumber salad at night, just again, something where some raw fruits and vegetables that can get you in a place where, again, you're engaging with the environment and with the earth because your body needs that. And it definitely needs the water. For sure, it needs the water. There are so many times where I was like, oh, I don't feel good. I'm mad. Whole time I was just thirsty. It was deeper than even being hangry. I just was dehydrated. So again, that's a key aspect with the environment. And then another part, I think this will probably be the last part with this, recognizing what types of places are a fit for you. And this changes. So for me, I've always been considered myself a city girl. I love living in major cities. I'm from a major city, and the suburbs just didn't really appeal to me. And I realize now a lot of that had to do with my family's perspective on the suburbs. When I got to my 20s and moved to Chicago, I loved it. I'm in Chicago, it's this big city, bustling. And through some personal tragedies, it was like my mind and my spirit were just done. And so I ended up moving to New York City, which of course is like the city of cities. And it's loud and energetic and crazy and intense. And I needed that. I always call New York City my defibrillator. It brought me back to life. But I hit a point where I've said, this is just way too much. This is sensory overload every day. I cannot take this. So I ended up moving to this really quiet suburb and I loved it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I ended up moving back to the city and flip flopped a little bit. And now I live in a suburb and I enjoy it. It works for my lifestyle. And so I want you to develop the habit of being in tune enough with yourself to know what type of overall environment works for you and if that is shifting, because that's something you have to take control over. So now let's talk about the social piece. As comforting as it is to try to hold on to your friend group, as comforting as it is to find people who are like you, and you do need that because it can be draining to be the only, whatever that means for you, whether that's gender, race, age, whatever the case may be. But it also is really important to be around people who are very different than you. Diversity, respect, even admiration to a certain point of difference, that's how you grow. It can be in very subtle ways. So I talked in another video this month about how we have over 50 dimensions of our identity. So there are all of these ways that we could be the same or different than people, and we don't even know it. We haven't even paid attention to that. And it took me really leaning into difference to recognize ways that I wanted to grow and shift and ways that I was quite biased. So I can give an example from high school. We had a chemistry teacher. He was known for just being no nonsense. I mean, this man did not play, but he was brilliant. He was a brilliant chemist. He was a brilliant chemistry teacher. And as hard as he was on all of us, we did respect him because he didn't play that. He was Jewish. And I want to say this was my first time in life recognizing someone as Jewish. It probably wasn't the first time that I'd seen a Jewish person or even interacted with them up close, but it was the first time where that was a prominent aspect of their identity to me in my mind. I had his class. This was 11th grade. Yeah, it was 11th grade. So I had his class at the same time that I happened to be in this program through a local nonprofit that was designed to bring kids from around Metro Detroit together, different races, backgrounds, etc., into these learning groups. And every month we could pick these different social experiences, like going to visit prisons or visit what's called homes for unwed mothers or things like that to learn about different people. So anyway, I ended up befriending and getting really cool with people from all these different backgrounds, which was shocking to me because if you know anything about Metro Detroit, it's deeply segregated by city. in a small area. And so as kids, we sitting there with people that we would never have talked to if it hadn't been for this program. So anyway, there was one young man that I got really cool with, and he was Jewish. And so we would have to, the whole group, it was like 60 of us all together from these different schools. But anyway, we would start at somebody's school. So we would pick one of the host schools and go there and start for the day. And then everybody would disperse and go to wherever their site visit would be. So this particular day, wherever the group that I was in went, they finished early. And so we ended up going, like we were near his school, we were near his home. And he said, "Hey, y'all want to come hang out at my house?" And we were like, "Yeah," because we 16 to 17. And it's like, "Yeah, we go kick it at your house." And it was I don't remember which one, but it was a Jewish holiday. And so his home had been decorated with all of these beautiful decorations. And so he was explaining what all of it meant, because a lot of us were unfamiliar with the Jewish faith and just all of the practices. But it was so beautiful. So he's explaining all of this to us. And I said, "Wow, that's amazing." And it made me remember my chemistry teacher. And I said, "Oh man, I wonder if he practices this, or I wonder if he celebrates this holiday." So the next day, I came back to school, and like I said, he didn't play games. So he knew if you were trying to butter him up. So he didn't really do all of that. He was nice. He could joke around, but he didn't do the sucking up. So I said, "Well, I don't want him to think I'm trying to suck up." So I said, "Mr. So and so, have you heard of blah blah blah?" And I named the holiday. His eyes lit up. He said, "Yes." And I said, "Oh, because I was in this blah blah blah." And we went and we were talking about, "Do you tell me how you celebrate?" And it opened up this whole conversation. His whole demeanor changed. His face lit up. And it was in that moment that, number one, I was happy that I had shown interest in him as a person, instead of just, "Man, this teacher ain't no joke. He don't be playing with us." Because he became human to me in that moment, in the same way that I was human. And so I say that to you, sis, because we are wired as people to be incredibly self absorbed. Unless someone shares a characteristic with us, most of the time we don't see them as human as us. We don't intend to. It's not always malicious, but we don't see them in the same way as us because we prioritize whoever we are more than anybody else. So it takes you being exposed and finding connection and building intimacy with other people to really be able to appreciate other people just as being just as fully human as you. So in that moment, me recognizing his faith and having curiosity and wanting to share and learn and build connection, because I started talking to him about some of the practices of my faith that were similar to that. And so we ended up having this great conversation about faith. Even as a high school student, just that little bit of intimacy. It didn't change my grade because he still was not playing. I still got a hard B minus in that class, but I loved it. And that opened up a new appreciation for others. And ironically, it ended up leading me into starting. I didn't follow through on it, but I was going to start this student unity group between Black and Jewish students when I got to undergrad. And I never would have felt compelled to do that if I hadn't had that experience in high school. So I say all that to say, you never know where that intimacy and that connection and that knowing and that relationship could lead. And not just for personal gain from a material standpoint, but just the idea that you see others and really see them. That's so important. And that is social sustainability, because life is going to take you a million different places. A million different places. And if you don't develop a tolerance early for seeing the humanity in others as being equally as valid as you're going to have a hard road, sis. It's going to be real tough. All right, last piece, governance. You have to learn how to develop a board of governors that make you want to submit to their wisdom, to their ideas, and their knowledge. If you are ungovernable, I don't even know if that's a word. If you are uncoachable, if you are unadvisable. And dare I say, if you are only a person who can be governed, advised, or taught by people you like, life is going to be like pushing a boulder up a mountain, because wisdom can come from so many different places. It is important for you to be able to respect the wisdom and the authority of others in order for you to get where you're going. This means that you're going to have to break down some childhood trauma, probably, because depending on your view of authority, that might be really hard for you. So I know for me, I struggled a lot and still have to check myself on women authority figures, because I had, because she's passed on now, but a very complicated relationship with my mother. And so women who I felt were in my mother's age group, very reluctant to hear from them. It was just like always this internal battle. But ironically, women who felt or perceived to be in my grandmother's age group, much more willing to listen to them, almost overly acquiescent, to my detriment in some cases. And so until I learned to recognize where I kept seeing my mother in coworkers and managers, I wasn't able to appreciate the governance that was available to me. And I've had some horrible supervisors who I would never want to supervise me again. But even through their, in some cases, abuse, and in some cases, just misaligned values, there are still some nuggets that I could pull out of. I wish I could have made better use of that relationship. I wish I could have extracted more from that connection because it was available to me. And then there's a flip side to that, because there's a balance, because a part of governance as well is knowing when you have too many yes people around you and they don't help you to stretch to grow. If you have too many people around who think everything you do is great, who think nothing is wrong, you don't need to change anything, that can be dangerous too, because there's always a way to improve. So I'll give an example. Ironically, one of my aunts in particular used to threaten that she would send me to charm school as a kid, and I hated it. And she and I, at that time, we're cool now, but we had a really contentious relationship. And so when she would do it, it was like her reinforcing that I wasn't good enough. And so I would resist, and it would make me lean deeper and deeper into being the antithesis of whatever she was asking me to do, whether that was don't sit with your legs open or close your mouth when you eat. It's like, oh, I'm going to just do me then. And then I reached a point in my career where it was important to have a certain level of social grace, to have a certain level of what's considered decorum, certain manners, etiquette, etc. In that moment, I was like, dang, I wish I had went to charm school when I was a kid, because I need to know these things. And so obviously I did the work to figure it out, and I could always improve more. But I remember when I first started bringing that up to people who were in my life at that season, they're like, no, it's fine. Nothing's wrong. You're good. But I knew, my internal compass, my intuition told me, no, for where I'm trying to go, for the rooms I'm trying to sit in, I need to show up differently. And so I had to be willing to shun those voices and step out of my own comfort zone and move past my own trauma and anger and frustration in order to show up differently and show up for myself, the self, capital S self, who I knew I wanted to be. And that was not the person I was then. So I actually ended up going back to this aunt, and I said, Auntie, I appreciate that you recognized as a kid that I was doing some things that were probably not where I should have been. And I appreciate that feedback. I wish that you had given it to me differently, and here's why. And so that opened up a whole conversation. And it was a healing moment for us because she got to talk more about why she approached it like that and all kind of stuff. I felt good even going back and expressing that gratitude, because there is a level of honor, not even necessarily just to her, but an honor for that need that could have been filled. And so a part of governance is recognizing that you have to make the most of relationships and the phases of your life. I'm going to talk a lot more about that later on. But anyway, just to know for now, you have to make the most of the phases of your life and the voices in your life. And then the last aspect of this, it's almost like you turn in a sphere. So there's this third side to it, which is sometimes you got to just go for self. Sometimes you will have an internal compass and an intuitive leaning or a spirit led voice, however you want to term it, that will tell you, you got to do this. And everyone around you will say, what the heck? Why are you doing that? You do this, that. But you know, no, I got to get out. I got to do this. I got to go do this. This needs to happen right now. And you have to follow that voice, no matter what anybody else says. That includes not only making a particular step yourself, but also your pace. I'm the type of person, when I think it, this is the Aries in me. When I think it should have been done. Like, boom, let's go. And so slower paces just send me. Like, I cannot take it. But I've learned to appreciate the power of both. So there are sometimes when people are like, oh, well, let's hurry. And I'm like, no, I'm good. Yeah, I can fall back. And then there are other times where I'm like, oh my God, I got to hurry up. I should have been did this. I got to do this. This has to be done this year. This has to be done this week, this month, whatever it may be. Your pace is yours to own. And it's important that you learn to eat the meat and spit out the bones. So somebody says something, how can you trust them? Is it something they've experienced? Is it something they have expertise in? Is this person just a yes person, or are they willing to challenge me? Or is this something that, hey, nobody else might believe in right now, but I'm just going for it? Whatever the case may be, it's up to you to manage that. So that's ESG for you. Again, what are the environments that feel good for you and that allow you to be the most productive and healthy and happy? How do you manage your relationships with others and the intimacy of those relationships for your best and highest good? And then finally, how do you govern yourself and allow other voices to assist in that governing process so that you can become the best version of yourself? Let me know which aspect of ESG is most impactful for you right now, and especially as we prepare to go into 2023, which area do you think you need the most help in? Let me know down in the comments. I look forward to seeing all of your thoughts. And of course, as always, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, happy holidays and especially happy new year. Bye, y'all.